Gen X might be the most resilient generation alive today. To understand Gen X, you have to understand one word: independence. Many Gen X children were raised in dual-income households. Divorce rates were rising. Parents worked long hours. So what happened? They came home from school to empty houses. They made their own snacks, did their own homework, solved their own problems. No smartphones, no group chats, no 24/7 supervision. Psychologically, this created something powerful: high self-reliance, emotional self-control, early maturity. They learned very young that no one is coming to save you, and strangely, that became their strength. Unlike younger generations who are used to constant connection, Gen X became comfortable being alone, and comfort with solitude builds mental toughness. Gen X grew up watching major world shifts: the end of the Cold War, corporate layoffs, economic recessions, the rise of personal computers. They watched systems fail. So psychologically, what developed? Skepticism. They don't blindly trust corporations. They don't worship authority. They question everything. But here's the key difference. Their skepticism is quiet, not loud outrage. They don't shout online. They analyze quietly. This is why many Gen Xers became excellent managers, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers. They don't get emotionally carried away by trends. They calculate. Gen X is the only generation that experienced both worlds fully: childhood without internet, adulthood with internet. They wrote letters, used cassette tapes, watched VHS. Then suddenly, email, Google, social media, smartphones. Psychologically, this created adaptability. They know life before technology, so they're not addicted to it. But they also learned technology, so they're not afraid of it. That balance creates a unique cognitive flexibility. While younger generations were born into tech and older ones struggled with it, Gen X had to learn it intentionally, and learning builds confidence. Here's something rarely talked about. Gen X doesn't overshare. They don't broadcast their trauma online. They don't turn every feeling into content. Why? Because they were raised in a culture that valued toughness over vulnerability. Walk it off, deal with it, be strong. Psychologically, this created emotional restraint, internal processing, privacy. But it also created a shadow side. Many Gen Xers struggle to openly express emotions. They carry stress quietly. They handle problems internally. To the outside world, they seem calm, but inside, they think deeply. Very deeply. Unlike millennials who faced student debt crises, or Gen Z who entered a gig economy, Gen X entered adulthood during corporate restructuring and economic uncertainty. They saw layoffs, they saw pensions disappear, they saw promises break. So psychologically, they became risk-aware, financially cautious, and long-term planners. They don't usually chase hype investments. They diversify, they save, they prepare. They don't assume the system will protect them. They protect themselves. Gen X is often called the forgotten generation. Baby boomers get historical credit. Millennials dominate social media narratives. Gen Z dominates trends. Gen X? Quiet in the middle. And this middle child positioning shaped their psychology. Middle children often develop independence, negotiation skills, adaptability, low need for validation. They don't crave constant applause. They don't demand the spotlight. They focus on results. Here's where it gets powerful. Gen X survived pre-digital isolation, rapid technological disruption, economic uncertainty, and cultural shifts. And they didn't collapse. They adapted. Psychologists often link resilience to 3 factors: early responsibility, exposure to moderate stress, and autonomy. Gen X had all 3. That's why they often appear calm in chaos. While others panic, they think. While others react, they plan. Ironically, even though they worked hard, Gen X became one of the first generations to question corporate loyalty. They saw their parents sacrifice everything for companies, only to get laid off. So they changed the narrative. They value work-life balance, personal freedom, family time. They may not post about mental health days, but they quietly prioritize stability over status. Gen X leaders are different. They don't micromanage like older bosses. They don't overshare like younger managers. They value competence, accountability, independence. They give freedom because they grew up with it. And psychologically, leaders who trust autonomy often build stronger teams. So here's the truth. Gen X doesn't need constant validation. They don't scream for attention. They don't dominate headlines. But they built the bridge between two worlds. They raised digital native children. They adapted to technological revolutions. They survived economic instability. And they did it quietly. While everyone else was arguing online, Gen X was figuring it out. Maybe the strongest generation isn't the loudest one. Maybe it's the one that learned early you don't need applause to be powerful. You just need resilience. And if you look closely, Generation X has that in abundance.